It's right after 5:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started to honor your time. Welcome to the last of our 4 town hall meetings. I'm Sheila Collazo, the proud superintendent of Victoria ISD, and I want to thank you for taking the time to come tonight. We're here to talk about our strategic plan, the strategic plan for the 25-29 school years, 4-year strategic plan. But before we get started, I want to introduce some of our board members and actually ask you to introduce yourself. We'll start in the back.
I'm Margaret Pruitt, and I'd love to just say thank you all so much for being here, greatly appreciated. And this is my 4th time to attend it, so I'm learning a lot. I do have another engagement in a little bit, so I'll be leaving in just a few minutes, but I did want to come and say how much I appreciate y'all taking your time out and coming in.
Thank you.
I'm Micah Patton. Getting up from middle tables is hard. But this is one of my first ones. We did do a big team of 8, so we've been through this before. But thank y'all for coming out and sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm Rick Jones, and if you think it's hard with my age. I like Mark. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, so the tables are just a little different in an elementary cafeteria. But as we start thinking about this 25-29 district strategic plan, we've spent the last few weeks, and actually for me a little bit longer than that. I'm going closer into my 80th day with the district, and 2 months prior to that, as I started to submit my application, spent a lot of time looking at VISD data, looked at the community sessions that were held with the superintendent search, and listened to what the community said about needs, and just looked at every single kind of data to figure out what needs to happen in the next 4 years, knowing that student outcomes and academics is our primary focus and where we need it to be. So we started the process with our cabinet and used that data to begin thinking about the 5 strategic priorities that I'll be talking about today. As I get started, I'm going to start with this slide. Some of you come from the business sector. Many of these words look very familiar to you. Return on investment, productivity, efficiency ratios, customer satisfaction, our metrics and our analysis, all those things. And so you probably ask, why am I sharing that? And I share that simply because as I think about Victoria ISD, I grew up in a family with businesses, and we were always looking at all of these things. When we think about Victoria ISD and we look at our programs and services, we're asking ourselves, what's the return on investment for that one academic program that we purchase? What kind of productivity are we getting? Our P&Ls, profits and losses. That for us is, are kids making gains or are they regressing? So everything has a connection to the business world, including everything that we talk about with finance. The difference for us is simply this. We serve 13,000 clients, ranging in ages from 3 to 18 plus. And the difference for us is every single one of those clients has a different need. So we don't get to decide 1 or 2 products and services that we do very, very well, although we do in some ways. We really have to focus on every individual student. We also have 2,400 staff members here in Victoria ISD, 21 schools, 4 specialized campuses, and 120 years of operation. Lots of vision and tradition that comes with this work. So you see the 90% here, and you might ask, what does that mean? So I want us to think about whether Victoria is a very small district in the state of Texas, a medium district, or is it a large district? What are your thoughts? Medium? Medium, I hear mediums. We're actually a very large school district, the largest in Region 3. We are larger than 92% of the districts. And I wrote 90 on there because there's growth in some other areas, but we are a very large school district. And that comes with a lot of responsibility, the responsibility of our 13,000 clients. And what we know to be true is that a strong Victoria equals strong schools. So when we go back and look at the last 3 years, the state has not released public ratings because of pending lawsuits. What we do know is that when we look at the academic side, there's room for improvement. And so my vision, our goal, our collective goal is to ensure that the quality of our schools is strong and that we have strong schools so that we continue to attract business, industry, et cetera, in the Victoria area, because those two go hand in hand. So our A through F system is the system that the state uses to rate campuses and the district as a whole. If we looked at last year's performance, although it wasn't published, the district was a C-rated district. We are going to change that. We have a plan. Today is really about rolling out the plan to ensure that where we are where we need to be, one, in an initial step this year. And I keep saying, I love Victoria. This is home for me. I wish that I had had the opportunity to start last summer, where we do the real deep work in the summer to launch the school year. Coming in December, we're pivoting and we're making some changes that we need to make to get to where we need to be. We'll see some incremental gains this year. We do have a plan moving forward after that. As I think about this work, STAR is one measure, but it's not our only measure. It's one single area that the state looks at to measure us. For me, our North Star goal is much broader than that. It's about ensuring that every single student that graduates from Victoria ISD graduates college, career, military, and citizenship ready. And so the citizenship ready is sort of a new term that we're folding in, basically to address this whole notion of discipline that the community has talked about. And we can take the discipline approach, that's one angle. I prefer to say we want our students to be citizenship ready, and we have a plan for how we're going to address that. So our strategic planning process is really centered around this whole notion of excellence. And you're going to see excellence threaded in everything we do, because we're establishing the bar for where we need to be and the bar for how we perform day after day. When we started this whole process, we know that the work around strategic planning begins with what are our core beliefs? And I started asking our staff, what are our core beliefs? And I heard a number of different things, and I looked at a document that had a lot of different core beliefs. And I heard things like students achieving their and, we're student-centered, and I heard a lot. For me, it was about how, if I go to Shields Elementary or Victoria West or East or Patty Weld or any school, any department, can we collectively articulate what our beliefs are? And we landed with this. Our core beliefs are the central ideas and values that consistently guide our work. And we said that one, we value people. We can't do this work without people. We are a people-centered organization, and we're going to focus on ensuring that we take care of people and give people the resources that they need. We value people. Two, we're about igniting learning. We're a learner-centered organization that focuses on igniting learning both with adults in our system and students in the system. And then we stay student-centered. What I promise is that every single decision that we make will be based on what's right for students, because that's why we exist. And then the last one is around delivering excellence. In everything we do, in every single action, in every single metric, it's about where is the bar and how do we deliver that level of excellence, because that's what our 13,000 students deserve. We have our vision, which is achieving excellence for all, and for me, all means all. Every single student, every single program, every single service, everything we do. And then the mission is around providing rigorous and relevant learning so that students contribute positively to society. So those are the big tenets, if you will, that guide our work for the next 4 years. Questions or comments before I move on? No? All right, so this document may look familiar. We have a few staff members here, community members, etc. It may look familiar to you. This was our initial portrait of a graduate. And when we started looking at this document, the team really felt like this still applies, it still exists, it's still what we believe. We changed it from the portrait of the graduate to portrait of excellence, because excellence is about the graduate, we know that to be true, but we want to ensure that every single adult, every student, everyone displays this whole notion of excellence. And it's about communicating effectively, thinking critically, embracing challenges, valuing people, assuming responsibility, and then desiring to learn and understand. So these will be our guiding tenets, and our mantra is excellence begins with me. Whether you're the parent or the teacher, because you wear two hats, the community member, the board member, etc. It's every one of us has a responsibility to ensure that excellence begins with us. So we move on to leadership, and we're really talking about from the boardroom to the classroom. We have leaders everywhere. And this is about growing leaders within the system. This used to be leading towards genius, and we've done a shift to really think about leading towards excellence. And it's about connecting to excellence, growing in excellence, and reaching for excellence. And then we have indicators that tell us whether we're moving there or not, that guide our actions as leaders. And so we will roll this out to ensure that we're building leaders across the system. Teacher leaders, student leaders, the administrative bench. How many assistant principals do we have ready to move into principal positions, etc. That's the leader. And then based on all that, we took all of the information to identify our 5 strategic priorities. There were 10 before, and the feedback that I received from staff was that 10 was too many areas to focus on, and so we wanted to narrow it down. There is an intentional sequence to how these strategic priorities are ordered. So the very first one is around exemplary student outcomes. That's the heart of our work, the heartbeat of the work. And this is ensuring that we have a strong start, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and a strong finish as students graduate. And everything in between is really about student outcomes, academic focus, etc. What we do know is when I look at the data, when we look at the data, what we see is we have students who are performing below grade level, reading below grade level, and there's a need to focus on literacy. So when we talk about literacy, it's the reading and writing components. And so what we're doing is, and this work is already in motion, we're building a very strong K-12 literacy framework. So we know what the research-based strategies are. We have the resources in VISD. What we need to do is pool all those resources together. The district uses HMH as its supplemental literacy program, which is very, very strong. It's the program that we use where I came from. It's about training teachers to know, so that teachers understand all of those components and how they work together. We have teachers that do that well. What we need to make sure is that in every single classroom, where we have reading instruction, the teacher is equipped to deliver the instruction at the highest levels. So that's the literacy. And then the other one is around numeracy, which is the math portion of that, and it's the same thing, building a very strong K-12 numeracy program for mathematics. So you might be asking, why those 2 areas? For us, what we know is that reading, writing, and mathematics are the disciplines that affect and impact every other discipline across the system. So those will be our primary areas of focus. We also have a performance outcome around eliminating performance gaps among student groups. Our bilingual ESL students, our special ed students are performing lower than the other students, so we have to close those gaps. And that's not unusual in many school districts. We don't want that to be the norm in Victoria ISD. We want to close that. Perform at or above state averages in every tested content. That's our initial baseline, not our baseline. That's where we want to be in the next year, 2 years. Our ultimate goal in 2029 is that we are far exceeding any of the state averages, because we know that Victoria ISD students can do that. ensure that students graduate with their cohort and achieve their end. So what do we mean by that? When a student starts 9th grade, that is their cohort. And so what we want to make sure is that they earn the credits necessary to advance and graduate in 4 years. The state looks at 5- and 6-year graduates. That's not our focus. Our focus is a 4-year graduate and they're earning their AND or achieving their AND, meaning they have an industry-based certification that they've worked towards. Now, I'm gonna just comment on this one briefly to say, when we look at the data around college career and military readiness, we're very high on the industry side, the career side. We're at a 67, almost 68%. On the college side, we have about 37% of our students that are prepared. Now, the state also falls not quite in that range, but it's not as high either. For us, the focus is how do we ensure that our students are college ready and career ready. Those numbers need to both be at very high levels. That's a focus. Increase overall attendance. Attendance has increased this year by almost a percentage point. When you look at a percentage point, you're talking about significant dollars back into the district. And so that's one area of focus. And then chronic absenteeism decreases as well. So we're at a higher rate than what we want to be, and really focusing on which students, why are those absences happening, and what do we need to do. We want students in classrooms, in front of teachers, because that's where the learning happens. And then in expanding improved dual credit, advanced placement programs, and associate's degrees. So our dual credit numbers, we have a lot of students taking dual credit courses, not quite the number where we want to be. And so today, for example, was that today or yesterday? Goodness, it was today, right? This week has been meeting after meeting. I met with multiple meetings, but another meeting with UHB and then Victoria College. And what we're doing is bringing our teams together. We're mapping out every dual credit course that we offer and then going back to look at where do we need to expand those so that we continue all those tracks with P-TECH Academy, with the Educator Academy, et cetera, and increasing dual credit numbers. Associate's degrees, that's an option. We had 2 students graduate with associate's degrees, and it's a little bit hard when you don't have an early college high school, although it's attainable, and that's the 60 hours. We have a lot of students and a small group of students that are earning a lot of credits. How do we ensure that that associate's degree begins to be an option? And on the advanced placement side, that students are passing that AP test at a 3 or higher. So there's a lot here around the college readiness that we talk about, a lot of strategies that we're working on to get us there. So how do we do it? We have a plan. And the plan is we have an academic playbook that we've already started to launch, and we have instructional priorities that we're focusing on. And so this is our academic playbook, and you see it in graphic form, but every single one of those 8 indicators is very robust, and it's what drives the academic improvement that we need. What I'll tell you is I came from a school district that was a struggling school district when I got there. Every campus was academically unacceptable, and in 3 years, using a lot of the strategies that we'll talk about, we were an A-rated school district. 87% economically disadvantaged community. And so I know the potential, I know what can happen, and it's about bringing those strategies to Victoria and working with our teams of teachers, administrators, et cetera, to move the work exponentially. This details that playbook. I'm not going to go into that, but just promising you that there's a plan. This is what basically I'm saying. And so you have the academic playbook, the frameworks, literacy and numeracy, expanding CTE programs. So we're moving from 18 programs of study to 23 programs of study next year, adding some additional programs of study so that they align with industry here in the Victoria area. And then you see toward the bottom, rigor relevance. We need to ensure that we have rigorous instruction in every classroom. And difficult and rigorous are not the same. Just because something is difficult for you doesn't mean it's difficult for me or vice versa. Rigorous is the bar that we establish and it doesn't change. And then focused acceleration for kids that need to be pushed academically at higher levels, interventions to close gaps, and then ensuring that we have support systems for those students that need those. So this is the big part of our how. Questions about the first priority, because that's the big one. That's the hefty one.
Will we be able to see what was smaller, the little box, the plans? Can
Oh,
we get a copy
absolutely.
of that so
Sure.
we can see it?
Absolutely.
The playbook?
The playbook, for sure.
Is that come by the office and grab one?
No, we'll email it to you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, just leave Sheila your
I'll make
email,
sure she
we'll
has it.
definitely give you that. And then, so we get into strategic priority 2, so we started with students, this one is about staff. And it's empowering staff, ensuring that we have a highly effective workforce. And so for me, for us, it's not simply about being certified, it's about ensuring that we have a highly effective teacher in every classroom in front of every single student. And so it's about improving recruitment and retention strategies, building capacity through robust professional development, and that's why I said I wish I had been here last summer, because that summer work, the professional development that happens there is really the springboard for what happens all year long. And then professional development, we know, is not a one-time opportunity. It's how do we engage in consistent professional development to continue to build on the learning and layer the learning. And then the last one is recognition processes to affirm staff as valued members of our people-centered organization. We will be even more about people. When you take care of people, they take care of you, and we know that to be true. The third strategic priority is safe and innovative learning environments. So this is simply about that. Student safety from internal and external threats, positive discipline and behavior initiatives to instill citizenship ready. And then the last one is, the last two are really around innovation. It's the technology skills that we need, not simply Chromebooks, because we know that the Chromebook time needs to be limited in many ways. It's the teacher that's the instructor, not the technology. And then innovative learning environments really addresses what we want to see with career and technical ed, GT, all our innovative programs and how we build those in a way that really push and accelerate our students. So for this one, what you'll see is we're rolling out our 10 VISD values. Excellence is the very first one because we have that threaded throughout our strategic plan. You will see these values embedded in our employee handbook. Why? Because this is what we expect of employees as well. So the 10 values begin with employees modeling and showing students what this looks and sounds like, and it also is about students displaying these values as well. So you'll see it in the student handbook, the student code of conduct. You will see them in every classroom, in every bus, in every refrigerator, across the city of Victoria, etc. This is about us working together to ensure that our students are citizenship ready. And there's a broader plan that goes with this, but this is in essence what the framework that we're using to build it. Questions about that before I leave?
Just one quick one. In
Yes.
regards to student safety, has there been any discussion about placing cameras inside the classrooms?
No. So there's, do you want to talk about that just a little bit, or do you want me to talk about it? So there's a rule about cameras, especially with special ed students, et cetera, but there are lots of caveats that go with that. And so placing cameras in classrooms is one, very expensive, and we have not talked about that.
And there's certain places that we just legally can't put them.
Sure,
Exactly.
no, I understand that, and especially what you brought up, but I just didn't know if it.
Yeah, great question. Anyone else? Yes?
Can you go down your process for, kids that are getting bullied, what your process of interference or intervention is on that?
So we have a zero tolerance on bullying. Every district does. And we have a process for how we investigate bullying. I say it starts with reporting bullying, because if we don't know, we can't investigate. And so once we have a claim that bullying has occurred, then we have a team of counselors, administrators, et cetera, that begin the bullying investigation. It goes through, once it's determined if it was bullying, then there are things like stay away agreements, et cetera, that are put in place to help address the bullying. But it depends on the severity. What I will tell you is, it's just a zero tolerance.
Thank you.
All right, so then we get into strategic priority number 4, which is around authentic partnerships. So we started with the students, then the staff, then the classroom, and now we get into our partners. This one, we have amazing partners. We compiled a list of all our partners, and we have 100 and something partners that work closely with us. And they donate time, money, goods, etc. And we are so appreciative. This is also about continuing to build on partnerships that benefit students, and we have some of those as well, it's about expanding some of those, internships, work-study programs, those kinds of things where students are in work-based situations, getting those experiences that we want. And so this is about collaborating with our community partners, building a robust network of support, and then the last one is utilizing our communication systems. I know that Ashley and our communications department do a lot to address and communicate information in a very timely manner. What we're noticing is a lot of people have social media, some don't, and so we're shifting a little bit to print format as well, so that, and I know there's a document, the District Digest, that went out this week or is going out this week if you haven't received yours yet because it's by campus. And it's really to provide some paper platforms so that we keep everybody informed. And that'll go out 4 times a year, 3 digests, and at the very end of the year, we're going to put an annual report together to be very transparent with our community about how the ISD is performing in multiple areas. Then the last one is operational excellence, and this is about short and long-term planning that comprehensively anticipates and addresses needs. And so it's all our financial management and our facilities management and then our capital asset management, sort of 3 prongs that go with that. The VISD has an A superior rating on the finance side, the highest you can achieve. And it's been like that for a good while. And so we continue to tell the community we are definitely good stewards of public funds. We know that. We are also being very intentional about going back and as we build the budget for next year, looking back at how we're spending our funds, analyzing our resources, identifying whether those resources are still necessary, and we have several systems at the very end that I'll talk about that do that. So on the finance side, we know that the 89th legislative session is in place. You hear a lot about what's happening with vouchers. There will be an impact with us on vouchers. We're looking at federal funds very closely. We have millions of dollars in federal funds that we need to keep because there would be a big impact with us on that. And then teacher pay is a big one for us. We want to make sure, and it's a priority for me, it's a priority for the board, it's a priority for us as a community to ensure that we take care of our teachers. What's happening with the legislature right now is that bigger districts, teachers are expected to receive $2,500. If you're a district of 5,000 students or less, they're going to get an additional $2,500. So everyone around us receives that money. Victoria ISD doesn't, which creates a larger gap. It is a concern for us. And so we just need to make sure that we're voicing what the Victoria needs are so that we're addressing that at the larger scale. So what's the planning process? This is where we are. We've developed a strategic plan. The next step will be we're going to work with the board to develop board goals that align with a strategic plan. We already have our action plans in place and our department plans, and I'll show you one page of that in just a minute. Then we develop district improvement plans, which cascade into the campus improvement plans. The difference for us, and I've heard our cabinet say, is everything is aligned. They feel like everything is streamlined and aligned, and that's where we're headed. So this is just one page of our action plan. We see this as priority number 1, the performance outcomes that go with that. What are our strategic actions? What are our key performance indicators and how will we monitor progress to make sure that we're on track to reach those goals? And every department is working on their section of that plan. These are our big master priority plans. One is the academic improvement plan, and you saw the first page of what that's gonna look like. We're doing a personnel right-sizing plan, and so what does that mean? We're looking very closely, we're starting at the district level. Through attrition, we don't have a reduction in force, but through attrition, we're starting to look at how we right-size our personnel. And based on where we are right now, we have about 1.5 million in savings. I know that we have one physician, Mr. Meyer, and I want to point him out because he's amazing. Everywhere I go, and I've said he's going to be retiring at the end of August, and I get this from everyone. And so, we're looking at every position. So as he leaves, we're going to right size and just several other positions that we look at. Facilities improvement plan, he's helping us work on that part as well. We have 8 binders of all the facility needs. That doesn't help the community understand what the needs are. So he's working on a document that streamlines all that, takes every one of our facilities, and year after year shows where the replacements need to happen. When do HVAC systems need to be replaced? When do roofs need to be replaced, et cetera, so that we see every single year what those costs are. Every time we defer, we're moving it into another year where we have other items that need to be replaced. And so for us, what this will look like over time, we're gonna bring a subcommittee together to decide where that needs to go. Replacement cycle plans are buses, white fleet, computers,
Instruments, band instruments.
Band instruments, just everything with larger unit costs. We have a replacement cycle plan. Those were all in departments, and we're pulling it together at the district level so that we have a bigger replacement cycle plan. Contract management plan, we're rolling this one out at the board meeting, and every department manages their contracts. It's about centralizing those so that we're constantly looking at when contracts become available to be renewed, Microsoft, all our vendors, and we stay on top of it to go back and renegotiate. And then the last one is our citizenship ready plan. So every single one of those you see fits into the strategic plan somewhere. These are just additional. We're focusing on these areas. We have teams of people that are working on every one of those to develop those now. We're rolling them out one at a time with the board and the community, because those are board and community meetings, and then implementing them as we go. Questions, comments before we leave this?
How severe are vouchers gonna affect like the ISD and other lower income ISDs? From what I've been hearing, they're not a good thing.
Well, it's hard to say what the impact is going to be. When you look at the research from other states, there is going to be an impact. We don't know to the degree that it will. Some of the inner city larger districts are probably going to see a bigger impact. They have more private schools. For me, I'm going to shift the narrative just a little bit to say we have seen publications that say that districts receive $15,000 per student. We don't. Our basic allotment is just over $6,000. That $15,000 formula varies, and that is not what we receive per student. And so what we need is an increase on our basic allotment. Ideally, if they would move away from ADA and shift into enrollment, and that would help us as well. And so I can't tell you what the impact is going to be. It just, we need to be funded. We haven't had a change in formula funding since 2019. So, increases in cost, gasoline, inflation, everything has changed. And just to give you one example, when we look at our special ed program, we have double the number of special ed students that we had in 2019, double. So in our special ed allotment, you have a percentage of that money that you have to use for special ed, and the other percentage you may use for other things. We don't have that luxury anymore. We're using 100%. You could have used it for transportation, gasoline, all, electricity, those kinds of things. We can't anymore. 100% of those dollars are used for special ed. So budgets are tight right now. Yes.
I have a comment and a question. My comment was when you were talking about putting the print version of what's going on in the district out for people. I'm no longer a parent. Well, I am a parent, but my kids are 25 and 27. I'm a proud VISD parent. But I've been a substitute before. I was a school librarian here. But I don't get all this information. I look for it because I'm interested. I support public schools. But in the election that we just had, I'm a poll worker, there were a lot of people that didn't understand the bond election, and he tried. I mean, you were everywhere but the Circle K talking to people, and I appreciate that, but there are a lot of people that don't come to these meetings, and so I was wondering if it'd be possible to put some of these regular print things in the newspaper for the older population that still get the paper, and I don't know if we could, eventually do some sort of school outreach to parents, maybe like it's a movie night, not so, and then bring in a little bit, just because it's the education piece that's missing, and it's not for lack of trying, it's for lack of participation with people that don't maybe have kids in school anymore.
Sure. So yes, the digital digest that we just disseminated now is also available in digital format on our website. So we have both platforms, even though it's only print. That's one option. The print option, I hear what you're saying in terms of let's utilize other resources to make sure that we disseminate that information in a broader.
Yes, to people who aren't really curious about going to the Victoria website, but they get the paper and would see the information maybe.
Absolutely.
And my other question is kind of along with what she was asking, there are all these things coming down the pike. If there's no Department of Education anymore, what happens to all of our federal funding that we do get, because there are a lot of federal programs that public schools need.
So there's multiple scenarios. We don't know how that's going to play out. Right now, what we hear on the federal level is the downsizing of staff. And so what is being said is that the federal funds are still going to trickle to the states, and the states would have control over how those funds get disseminated. So I've worked very closely with Corey Green at TEA. Basically, the funds that we're talking about on the federal side are Title I, all the title funds, Carl Perkins, and then the the child nutrition program, all of those. And so TEA has formulas that they use to disseminate, and they do that work already. So as long as the funds still trickle down, the agency, TEA, meaning, will figure out a way to get those funds to us because they've done that in the past.
Okay.
That's what we're hopeful for.
Yes, okay.
Absolutely.
So it's not just gonna dry up.
Well,
It's going
that's
to
what
the
we're
states
hopeful
to
for.
be in charge. That's our point.
It was about states
So
taking.
that each state is to do their business the way they want to do their business.
Yeah, and the states already do a lot of that, and so my hunch is we'll be
Will
okay.
any of that become political? Like, we're gonna hold X amount of billions of dollars for vouchers, because right now it's 1 billion. So they're estimating like 5 to 6 students inside VISD would qualify as a number that I've heard. Will any of that if it does trickle down, will it become political and we have to fight for it as a district?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
We shall see.
So we have our 6 priority plans, and then from there, just sort of wrap it up. That gives you the gist of our strategic plan, the 5 priorities, these plans that we're working on, and we're moving the work exponentially. It's been fast and furious.
I have a question. I love that you have a strategic plan and obviously an action plan, which I can read before.
Yeah.
But just pinpointing on one area of that, and on the stewardship. Just give me one example of what your plan is for developing and creating better citizens, on getting them citizen ready.
Well,
One
yeah.
action.
One action, the big action is taking the VISD values, because everything is centered around that. But it's around creating a master plan where every campus has strategies that they're using to roll out all those 10 values. We reinforce, we redirect, we do all of those things to ensure that that is how students think and act all the time. And that's broad, it's very broad, yeah, it is, but once we get into the rollout process, it happens. The other piece that I know to be true is when we have very engaged students in classrooms and instruction is at very high levels, students conform. And Randy and I have talked about this. Ruby Payne does a lot of research about, students that come from poverty and that kind of stuff. And she talks about how there's two sets of rules. And students conform. They understand that when you're at school, this is how we operate. If you're at home, it may be different, but here, this is our operating norm. What I've heard from the community, which I know to be true, is we need consistency. Consistency in implementation, how we implement and enforce expectations, and what our consequences are consistently across campuses. It varies sometimes.
That's better.
Yeah. There's a lot of components to this, yes. Other questions?
What you were talking about, I should have asked earlier, but from 18 to 23, like the industry-based, like, what are some of those that are, those that there's like 5 new ones there?
Yes, and so, off the top of my head,
I don't know if
I
like working
can't-
with the chemical plants or.
one of them is industry, yeah, one of them is industry, I can't remember what the 5 were.
You got the energy.
Energy, industry, energy, there's several of them there. Yeah, but just to give you another example, like in P-TECH, we went from a CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant, to a CMA, which is more national certification, and
My daughter had.
yeah, and we like that. And how do we continue to push students so that they're working towards an LVN? And those are the conversations that we're having with DC right now. The RN program or the BSN program. I mean, those are the tracks where we want to begin taking students. Level 1 and level 2 certificates from the college, those are big, beyond the industry-based certification. All right, well, we have a QR code here if you would like to give us feedback. And Sheila also has some little cards where if you choose not to use a QR code, we have little cards to take feedback as well. But your feedback is important to us. I mean, as community members, as staff members, et cetera, we take this information and it helps us shape the work and how we move it forward. So that's one, and then I want to thank you again. These are tough afternoons. It's one day before spring break, as we know, and we just thank you for taking the time to be here. It says a lot about your interest, and it says a lot about how we can work together.